So, as you guys are well aware, Morfydd Clark was probably one of the things that was made fun of the most on Rings of Power. Her performance as Galadriel was highly, highly criticized. To the point where I think pretty much every stream that we ever did about Rings of Power was basically focusing on how terrible Galadriel was. And while the show media websites would want to tell you that it had to do with racism and it had to do with people not liking Disa or anything like that, or black hobbits, pretty much stories of that nature. It had nothing to do with that. Galadriel was the number one criticism that that show had, and ironically, that was the white lead character. Now, why am I talking about Galadriel? So there is an article from Mounting Into Comics that goes into something that Morphy Clark just recently said. And apparently she says, after previously telling critics to shut the F up, the Rings of Power actress Morphy Clark now says, if I was on the other side, I'd also be feeling like that. So apparently she's trying to agree with the fans now, even though she basically told everybody to go F off initially when the entire Rings of Power debacle was going on. Very interesting that all of a sudden she's trying to switch sides. Not really sure why that is, other than maybe she's trying to win people over because she knows she's going to return as Galadriel, which is a number one hated character in that entire show. But let's see what this article has to say. So it says, actress Morfydd Clark, who plays Galadriel in Prime Video's The Lord of the Rings of Power, completely changed her tune when it comes to responding to criticism of the show, her character, and her castmates in a recent interview. Guys, if you guys are new here, please consider giving this video a like because it helps us beat the YouTube algorithm every single day that we fight. So it says, during the lead up to the release of The Lord of the Rings of Power, Clark took it upon herself to insinuate that critics of the show and its radical changes to Tolkien's lore were racist. Now, to be fair, it wasn't just Morfydd Clark. Pretty much everybody on the Rings of Power cast was trying to call you racist if you didn't enjoy their content. And the funny thing is, none of that ended up being true. The show bombed because the show was terrible. Ultimately, it was just a terrible show, and it had so much money, so much potential, the likes of which, if you were going to create something that was actually good within the Tolkien universe that's Lord of the Rings, then it would have been Amazon. They had all the money in the world, literally all the resources in the world to make this something interesting, to make this something powerful. But unfortunately, they don't have the mindset that is necessary to create something that is going to be timeless like Tolkien's original works. All they wanted to do was create their own version of the Game of Thrones, and that's essentially why it bombed, because why would people want to watch you for fake Game of Thrones when they could just go watch the actual real Game of Thrones, which was running at the exact same time as your show, which makes it even more hilarious. It says in August, she posted to her Instagram stories, writing, anyone sending hate to my black castmates, get off my page, get off the internet, and shut up. Very interesting, and I guarantee you, she probably wasn't even the one who posted that. Morfydd Clark probably didn't even post that. It was probably her PR team that posted it, because it was her and it was everybody else in the cast as well that was posting basically similar stuff to their social media, so it was all kind of coordinated. It says she followed that up with a short video of her castmate, Charles Edwards as Celebrimbor, making a hand motion that reveals the phrase, shut the F up. She then captioned it, writing, who made this? Not only did Clark insinuate that critics of the numerous changes the show made to Tolkien's lore were racist, but she also demanded those critics silence. On top of this, she would also attempt to defend the radical changes the show made by making the nonsensical argument that no one could have known what Tolkien wanted or liked, despite him explicitly writing it down in his novels and in his letters. And that's the other thing too. When they were talk about, oh, this is the book that Tolkien never wrote, this is what he would have wanted. If Tolkien was around today, he would be totally down with these changes. There is literal letters of him saying that he didn't like fan fiction or something along those lines. He did not like any changes to his work. His work, that was his mythos. He didn't want anybody changing it. And he specifically said if it was to be changed, it was to be from his own hand, or simply put, someone would have to pay him an obscene amount of money for him to even just basically not be able to say no. So if you wanted to argue from that aspect and say, okay, maybe it's money that he would probably have said yes to, considering that it's Amazon, then you can have that argument. But for you saying, oh yeah, he would be totally down with the changes just because it's progressive, no, he would not have. And it's been explicitly said that he would not have. And on top of that, Tolkien came from a totally different time. So his mindset back then would not have fit with the people here now. That's just plain and simple. And they're trying to convince you otherwise, and it's hilarious, to be honest with you. It says she told Inverse Tolkien was a really complex person who wrote a really complex world, and this idea that anyone could know exactly what he would have wanted or what he would have liked, I feel, is nonsense. However, her tune has seemingly changed. In a new interview with Vanity Fair, Clark was asked, now that the first season has aired, how are you taking in feedback on your character and the show? She replied, because I'm a fan of this type of genre, I've read books that have been turned into things, and I've been like, I don't think the house would have looked like that, so I really get it. She continued, what's so wonderful about these worlds and these characters is that they don't exist, and yet they do so intensely in so many minds. So I think there's an idea that you can't please everyone, but also I do respect the ownership of her, because I know if I was on the other side, I'd also be feeling like that. Clark concluded, I feel very protective about that. I feel quite protective of making sure she's safe from harm. Well, if that's the case, why did you why did you let them turn you into a super warrior mansplaining Galadriel? Like why did you are literally called Guy Ladriel as a joke for a reason. So if you really were trying to be super protective of Galadriel, why would you let them turn her into this? You know this is not how she is. You know this is not how she is as a character. So again, I don't really believe a single word that she's saying, and I think she's trying to play both sides. It says, unfortunately, Clark has completely failed in that regard, given how the first season depicts the character, which is exactly what I said. YouTuber The One Ring accurately points out how the character was twisted and warped from Tolkien's character. He explained they changed her into a character that doesn't resemble what Tolkien actually wrote. They made her a commander of armies that's fueled by anger, that's fueled by self-centeredness, self-righteousness, and bad manners. Interestingly, Clark admits Galadriel was mischaracterized in the first season, albeit she appears to tactically justify the decision. So last season, I think that her grief was so intense, her sadness was so huge. I think when you are in those points of ultimate lows, you do end up becoming self-obsessed. You can't see anything beyond this haze of misery, and now that has started to clear. As for what to expect in the second season for her character, Clark detailed, hopefully, with that she's rediscovering the beauty of life and what she was really trying to protect the whole time beyond herself. That's something I just love about Tolkien. You need to be connected to the world and those around you. I just really don't like when these actors try to say that they are obsessed with Tolkien or they love Tolkien's work, because I just don't buy it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can tell when someone is a fan, and you can tell when someone's pretending to be a fan. And when you have someone like Henry Cavill, for example, right? Henry Cavill, when he talks about certain projects, certain IPs, you know damn well this man is very much into what he's talking about. Where you talk to these people, and you know damn well they're just making the shit up at this point. They're just making it up. They're repeating what they're told from their PR teams they work with Amazon, and they're not fans. They're not fans. Could they have possibly read the books? Maybe. I highly doubt it was in depth, and they probably ended up reading the books when they got hired for the role, not beforehand. So again, you might be a fan of the genre, but the genre was literally nearly made from Lord of the Rings. Like, Lord of the Rings is considered one of the forefathers of the fantasy genre. So you being a fan of the genre literally is because Lord of the Rings exists as it is, or as it was. And you trying to create this girl boss nonsense that Amazon Rings of Power tried to come up with, it didn't help the situation. It didn't help the genre, and it damn sure never helped Galadriel as a character. So if you truly care about this character, you need to get off your ass for season 2 and really try your best to change it. But I really don't believe that you're going to, because honestly, all the big wigs at Amazon have a much different idea for this TV show. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.